All right, hey everyone. I'm going to go ahead and go over today's lesson. I'm assuming if you're watching this, you are not here or you are reviewing. So, for the activator for today, I gave you the vocab, and I would like for you to highlight words that are important in the definitions, and also use the Quizlet to practice. So we're going to do 4 slides of notes, just like yesterday, and then we're going to do a new type of activity called link analysis. It's kind of like a concept web. I'll go into more detail about how to do it after we get done with the notes. But let's go ahead and dive on in. Unfortunately, you have missed the Nearpod opportunity to do the time to climb. Hopefully you'll be there next time. All right, so if you remember from yesterday, the French and Indian War is over. The Treaty of Paris has been signed. Britain is the victor, and they've got all this new land guaranteed in the New World. Things are looking up, right? Well, not so much. Britain may have won the war, but they paid a very high financial price to do so. And they are in massive debt. Because at the end of the day, if nothing else, wars are very expensive. All right? So, they're in this huge amount of debt. You can see over here on the right, something called the debt to GDP ratio. So that means you put the debt on one side of the fraction, and you put the GDP on the other side of the fraction, and on the left here is a percent. So basically, their national debt prior to the start of the 7 Years' War was about 100%, a little less debt to GDP ratio, meaning that the total value of all goods and services produced in the empire in a year equaled the amount of money they owed to people. After the war, that number skyrockets to 158%. All right, so that is a 58% jump. Okay, that's huge, and it is very concerning for both the king and for Parliament. So when you're in debt, you've got to do 2 things. Number 1, not get more debt. Number 2, pay down the debt you have. We'll address the not get more debt part first. So in order to not get more debt, the king needs to avoid another war. So yeah, this was called the French and Indian War, and the French people all went home. But guess who's still there between the Appalachian Mountains and the Mississippi River? Native Americans. And they are upset. And in a lot of ways looking for a fight. They will fight any settler that tries to move into that land. And that has the potential to draw Britain right back into another war to protect the colonists moving into that territory. A war that they cannot afford. All right. So make sure you star the part about the debt in your 2-column notes. That's going to be important. So what does he do to try to prevent this future war, this war he's worried about with the Native Americans, from happening? He issues something called the Proclamation of 1763, which creates the Proclamation line of 1763. Again, we don't name things cleverly in social studies. And what it did is it forbade the colonists, prevented them from, or supposed to, prevent them from moving west of the Appalachian Mountains. So all that new land that they just gained, they fought in a war to get, and in a lot of cases, if they were soldiers, were promised land as payment for fighting in that war. They are now told by the king, nope, you can't go there. And they are a tad bit upset. They have no representation because he's a king, right? And he's the one who made the rule. Plus, they have no ability to lobby Parliament to try to make a change here. That being said, even though most British American colonists are very upset about the Proclamation line of 1763, Georgia's colonists, not so much. If you think back to yesterday, they're that tiny colony. They're barely clinging on to the borders of the Savannah River and the Atlantic Ocean. And not only did they gain a bunch of land to the west, just like the rest of them, and are being told they can't go there, but they also gained another bit of land to the south. All right, a whole lot of land to the south. All right, so they're like, yeah, okay, we may not be able to go west, but we can now go south, and that's totally fine. So most Georgia colonists are like, yeah, we're good with this. Now on to the second part. So again, the Proclamation line is about preventing more debt. The Parliament is going to pass a series of taxes, the Stamp Act being the most egregious, to pay down the debt that they did get from the French and Indian War. And so Parliament believed, though, that the colonists have to pay like extra taxes in order to cover the costs, because they're ultimately the ones that benefited the most from the war. The problem with this is like twofold. Number one, this is the first time Parliament kind of goes around the colonial legislatures and taxes the colonists directly. And this is really upsetting because it means that the colonists themselves have no voice, have no say in how those taxes are collected and what ends up being taxed and at what rate. One of the one that, like I mentioned a minute ago, the one that makes the colonists the most angry is the Stamp Act, and this is really of 1765. This really causes them to begin to like organize into groups, which we'll talk about more in a second. But the Stamp Act is functionally a tax on paper. All right, newspapers, licenses, legal documents. In order, any piece of paper that you bought, it had to have this stamp on it. All right, you can see the stamp right there. All right. So this really makes the colonists angry, and what do angry people do? They go out and find other angry people, and they form groups. In this case, they form a group called the Sons of Liberty. Now, this is all 13 colonies. And they would basically like threaten the tax collectors. Like some of them were like tarred and feathered and run out of town. Some of them had their houses torn down. I mean, there was a very systematic campaign of violence and intimidation against these different people that were selected to collect these taxes and anybody who supported the taxes. That being said, that didn't really happen a whole lot in Georgia. There was one incident in which like a group of people from Charleston, South Carolina, basically walked through the woods to Savannah to get angry at the royal governor in Savannah about his support of the taxes. But like the people in Savannah proper, who were actually from there, they weren't all that upset about it. That being said, there were a few people in Georgia that, you know, felt that the Stamp Act was kind of the Parliament overstepping its bounds and going around the legislature, and so they formed their own like chapter, their own team of the Sons of Liberty, the Liberty Boys. So conceptually, what I need you to understand is that the Sons of Liberty is like an umbrella organization over all 13 colonies of groups that formed in opposition to the Stamp Act. The Liberty Boys is the one that is the team of the Sons of Liberty that's specific to Georgia. All right. Now, eventually this is going to work. Eventually, this campaign on behalf of the colonies to get the Stamp Act overturned results in Parliament repealing the tax. But I want you to think about the message here. So Parliament repeals the tax, and they say to the colonists, look, we're going to do this one time. We're going to repeal this tax because clearly you hate it. But we're not going to do it again, and you are going to have to pay taxes to help pay down this debt. So Parliament's kind of putting a line in the sand saying, we'll work with you on this one thing, but no further. But the message that the colonists get from the repeal of the Stamp Act is very different. They see that, hey, Parliament, when challenged, will back down. So if they do something in the future that I don't like, I'm going to do this all over again. All right, and you can see how that's going to lead us into conflict and ultimately into the American Revolution. All right, so let's take a look at today's assignment. Go back into here, the French and Indian War, link analysis. Go ahead and click on that. And you'll need to zoom in a bit to see it, but basically what you're going to do is explain this is designed to get you to think about the relationship between different things. So what's the relationship between the 7 Years' War and the Treaty of Paris? Well, the answer there is pretty straightforward. The treaty, and I know it's sideways, the Treaty of Paris ends the 7 Years' War. That's it. That's all you have to do. Just what is that relationship? Keep it short, keep it simple. The Treaty of Paris of 1763, Georgia's borders, like what's the relationship there? You say the Treaty of Paris sets Georgia's borders at the Mississippi River and at the St. Mary's, where it is today with Florida. And that's it. Just go around the horn. get all of those connections done. Some of them are more difficult than others. Use your notes, please, to get it done. This will probably be a graded assignment. I really enjoy these. We will do several more as the year goes on. All right. Now you do erase the answers I just gave so y'all don't see them tomorrow. Okay. All right. I know it's kind of sideways and stuff. That's fine. It just gives you more room to type if you need it. I can always zoom in if I need to read your answers. All right. As always, y'all, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye.